Jean-Pierre, Professor Sauvage, thank you very much for your inspiring talk. I have a very simple question to start with. Will artificial intelligence eliminate human stupidity? Because, you know, Einstein said two things. He said he said many things, but he said that human stupidity and the universe are infinite. And about the universe, I'm not even sure. So, will artificial intelligence eliminate human stupidity?
So, difficult question, Daniel. Artificial intelligence, you know, I'm not sure exactly what it means. I mean, if it is manipulating knowledge, okay, I accept it. But intelligence, I think there are probably very precise definitions. Can we call artificial intelligence everything belonging to the field of, let's say, informatics and electronic way of reasoning? Because artificial intelligence depends depends on what we have provided to the machine, what we have to provide to the softwares. So honestly, I cannot clearly answer. I cannot just tell you a small story, you know. In Japan, there is a very nice meeting every year, which is the HOPE meeting, bringing together, you know, supposedly great scientists and younger scientists. And I participated in that in 2017, 1 year after the Nobel Prize. And the last session was about artificial intelligence. And we were 6 Nobel Prizes on the stage. And the journalist, you know, who was very good and very professional, asked us, so do you believe that one day the Nobel Prize will be given to artificial intelligence? And we had to vote. So we couldn't say, I don't know, contrary to what I'm doing now. We couldn't say, I don't know. And so there was a vote, and there were 3 Nobel laureates thinking that, yes, one day the Nobel Prize will go to artificial intelligence, and 3 others who were totally you know, disagreeing. So today, if I have, you know, to give my personal opinion, I think, yes, you know, I would say that artificial intelligence will receive a Nobel Prize one day.
Thank you. The next question that I would like to ask is the following. If you had not been a chemist, if you had not been a scientist, what else do you think you would have liked to be, you would have been, or you could have been?
I must say, you know, since the age of 16 or so, I knew that I wanted to become a scientist and to be involved in mostly in research. But before that, I think I was also very much interested in music. My biological father was at its time, you know, a well-recognized composer and a musician, and that had probably some influence. And I started to learn the piano at the age of 9, and I loved it. But for some reason, you know, we were moving all the time with my family. I could never get, you know, a stable place where I could learn more the piano. So, but music, I was still very much attracted by music.
But your chemistry is very much artistic. It has to do with art. It's a kind of molecular art, isn't it?
Yeah, I fully agree on that, yeah, yes. And deliberately, you know, some people may criticize, may argue, so what is the point, you know, in making beautiful molecules? But you are also very concerned, you know, if I look at what you have done yourself, at your work, you know, you have also done very beautiful molecules without any, let's say, any direct connection to applications. But I believe we shouldn't feel guilty, you know.
In many aspects in science, when the simple fact that you can do something new is a good enough reason to do it, because many years later, somebody may show up and use that. For example, a very good example is lasers.
Yeah.
When the laser was first invented, I think nobody ever imagined that you will use laser pointers.
Yeah.
And also when in construction, if you want something perfectly flat, you use lasers to make that perfectly flat. So would you agree with the statement that in science and discovery, the simple fact that the human mind can imagine and can do something is a good enough reason to do it?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. I have another example which is equally surprising. Semiconductors. So do you know when semiconductors were discovered? It was Faraday, you know, a famous electrochemist in the UK in 1830. 1830. You can calculate, you know, how many years, almost centuries, you know, elapsed before applications came out. And they came out with the transistors in 1940 something. So more than a century.
The touch screen.
Yeah.
Was invented in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first examples of the touch screen. Okay,
yeah.
So this brings me to another question, which I think is interesting. Maybe not so interesting for the young generation, but for the scientists in the room. That is financing of research. You cannot do research if you're not well financed. You don't get financing, you cannot buy your molecules, you cannot do serious research. Now, back in the time, long time ago, you would receive finance quite easily. You would write 1 or 2 pages what you want to do, why you want to do it, you'd receive the money, and several years later you will have to tell what you have done with the money. Today, there are 2 phenomena that happen. First is the amount of money, for example, the European money in research is much higher, but at the same time, the administrative burden that comes with that money is much heavier, so that sometimes researchers complain that they have to spend too much time on managing their financing than on actually doing science. A second example, which I gave in the previous conversation, I gave this example also with Jean-Marie when he was here. If Einstein had requested money for the theory of relativity, probably they would have said, no way. So, of course, there's a just balance between administrative tasks and scientific tasks. How would you comment on this new ecosystem of research financing?
Yeah, well, it's not a good thing, you know. I remember when we started on catenanes, you know, when I was speaking to some people, some of them were excited, you know, they thought it's a nice project. Some others were not interested at all, you know, and they were thinking that no need of spending money on projects so, you know, far away from the interest of the other scientists. And and this is a bit sad, but at the time, you know, it was in the 80s when we started, we could apply for money to the CNRS, and there were, you know, some special programs, Action Thématique Programmée, ATP, very similar to ATP, and those programs were very simple. You know, you were just writing 3 or 4 pages with your project, and this is what I did. You know, I wrote 3 or 4 pages on the principle on how to make catenanes, and we got the money, good money. You know, that was enough for working for 2 or 3 years. But nowadays, I mean, it's unthinkable. No way. If you write a project which seems to be, you know, of no interest for any application, no way.
Thank you. Now, here, listening to you and listening to your speech, something crossed my mind, and I must ask you this. But before that, I'm going to say a very short joke. A frog and a Scorpio were meeting together, and there was a very big rain. It was raining a lot. And the Scorpio was going to die. He was going to drown. And he asked the frog, he says, please, please, take me on your back. If you don't take me on your back, I'm going to die. And the frog says, but if I take you, you will sting me. No, I promise, I will not sting you. Then the frog takes the Scorpio, and in the middle of the river, the Scorpio stings. And the frog says, why did you sting me? Because now we are both going to die. And the Scorpio said, you know, I'm a Scorpio. So I tried very hard. You know, my reputation in the public domain is that I'm very provocative. And I tried very hard for 2 hours not to be provocative, but I cannot anymore. I must be provocative now. So I have a quite provocative question. Please raise your hands. Vă rog să ridicați mâna cei care sunt la umanioare, care sunt profesori de umanioare. Limbă, literatură, istorie. 2. Tata, tatăl meu. Așa. Deci avem 2 persoane așa. Când vine so there are 2 people from humanistic studies. Yeah. When there's a Nobel laureate on literature, the room is full of scientists that come from physics, chemistry, and so on. Of course, humanities and hard sciences, they go hand in hand. There's no question about that. But if you don't know about Plato, if you don't know about great philosophers, you will be deemed as inculte, unculte. Huh? But if you don't know about how many base pairs of DNA you have in your body, did you know that you have mitochondrial DNA that only comes from your mother? If you don't know these basic things of hard science, well, it's okay, because you know Plato. I don't mean to say that there should be a tension between humanities and hard sciences. But you mentioned in your speech how important it is not to give way to obscurantism, not to give way to conspiration theories, not to give way to this crazy idea to cut nuclear energy. You have massive amounts of people that ask in the streets of Germany to cut nuclear energy. And then they open the coal mines again, which is totally crazy. Sure. So, Jean-Pierre, please, from your experience, from you meeting so many people in so many areas, tell us your take, your opinion, your thoughts on this tension between humanities and hard sciences, and also about the necessary steps to bring scientific culture deeper and more into the public's brains?
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. It's a political question, no doubt. I can speak for France, if you talk to journalists, there is a small proportion of journalists who have a very high scientific culture. They know a bit of everything, and they can learn very rapidly. And I had many interviews, with such people. This is great. But the vast majority of journalists, those you see on television, those who present the news of the day, in France, they are almost proud of not knowing science at all.
Basic facts of science.
Yeah, basic.
It's not, I mean, nobody's requesting to know the details, but the basic facts of science.
But when you say something and they start to smile, and they say, oh yeah, but I'm not a scientist, I'm not interested.
Almost
in that.
proud.
Yeah, almost proud. And I'm sure it's not the only country in the world, many people are not interested at all. I would also blame, a system which is that of social networks.
Social networks.
Yeah, social networks can produce, great things. I fully agree on that. But when you see people who have vague notions of chemistry, who have lots of followers, because they tell things which are totally crazy, and their influence is by far greater than an expert, who is perhaps much less famous among those networks, who tells something real.
Scientific truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a Facebook page?
No, of course not.
TikTok? No?
I'm on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, okay.
Yeah. And ResearchGate.
Yeah.
Professional.
Would you take two more provocative questions?
Of course, of course.
Are there wrong questions? Are there bad questions?
No, I don't think there are bad questions.
No, in general.
No.
Do bad questions exist?
I don't think they exist. No, there are bad answers. In the same way, there are no stupid questions. There are stupid answers.
Okay, so I have two more provocative questions. First is the following. It just crossed my mind. In Strasbourg, we have Place Gutenberg.
Yeah.
So in 1455, Johannes Gutenberg invented the print, tiparnica. At that time, they started to print Bibles. And then they started to spread literacy. And then started to be printed science, what we knew at the time. So the printed book brought the incredible development of the Western world that followed. Because the Western world at that time was in a state of development when it was looking for material and spiritual progress. In 1990 came the internet, the second biggest intellectual revolution after the printed book. But at this time, the Western society was rich. We were rich. And we started to use internet for having fun, pour du divertissement. And the incredible power of internet is today more used for having fun for Netflix and other kinds of fun, dear kids, rather than for knowledge. When somebody goes on the internet, in general, people go on internet much more for fun than for looking for knowledge. Now we are at the eve of the third big intellectual revolution. Okay. Artificial intelligence. Could we do something that in our societies we produce a societal state of mind so that people spontaneously go and use these fantastic tools for the search of knowledge instead of, it's not bad to have fun, right?
Yeah,
so,
sure.
so you understand my question? You understand my point of view? Would you comment on that,
Yeah, I
please?
think I understand your point of view. You spoke of the Bible, and the Bible was dispatched everywhere thanks to the new printing process developed by Gutenberg. But it didn't last forever. After, I don't know, I mean, it's impossible to say, but after a few decades or maybe a century, books, cultural books, literature, started to grow and to be dispatched everywhere. And so I'm very optimistic in a way. It will take time, but I think, maybe this is my nature, I'm very optimistic. I believe that, from stupid entertainment or games or whatever on the internet, the people will gradually be more curious and try to dig. I believe Wikipedia is something fantastic, in my opinion. And so I have faith, in evolution and human beings, that they will be more curious than simply confining their activities on, having fun.
So you're optimistic about the evolution,
yes,
of this. Okay, so before taking two questions from the young students in the room, deci o să luăm 2 sau 3 întrebări din partea tinerilor din sală, așa că vă rog frumos câțiva dintre dumneavoastră să vă formulați câteva întrebări. Dar înainte de asta voi mai avea un punct de discuție. Jean-Pierre, this is the last provocative point.
But if I may say, this is mind provocation.
Of course, it's mind provocation, right?
Polite, kind.
It's, yes. So, Jean-Pierre, Timișoara, the city where we are in, back in 1989, started what was a true revolution,
Sure.
changing the criminal communist system. The young students in the room, they did not witness those times. They did not witness Nazism. Even you were a very young boy when Nazism was over. Two big catastrophes of the 20th century. I moved from communist Romania to free France. And one of the first things that shocked me in France was the amount of intellectuals, very, very smart people, that they were not sure if the criminal communist regimes that we experienced in Eastern Europe, were they really that bad? Because people did not experience that, they could not, of course, know until they saw for themselves. But I was always puzzled by the fascination of many French intellectuals, and not the least, Sartre, for example, being one example, with what I call and will always call the criminal communist regimes. To formulate my question in a broader sense is the following. Society, in order to progress, needs a gradient. There need to be people that know more, people that know less, so that those that know less will aim to become better. There need to be successful people that are rich, others that take them as model and they work hard, they become better to be richer. So gradient is the condition of progress. Too much gradient leads to polarization. And polarization leads to conflict. So, there are 2 points on which I'd be very curious. First of all, if you could, maybe not explain, but if you could comment on this, what is very strange for us, strange fascination of French intellectual with what we experience to be a criminal communist regime, and on the balance of gradient for society in order to encourage, so that to maximize progress, to maximize the desire of people to grow, and to minimize the danger of polarizing too much our societies.
Yeah, it's a very interesting problem. More than a question, it's a big problem. If you look at the French, look at them nowadays. They demonstrate almost every day. They are very violent. They are very unsatisfied. And by nature, the French is frustrated. His neighbor, has a little bit more space than himself. He will be envious. He will be jealous. I think this explains that.
Also the French, because in Romania we have
mostly the French.
In Romanian we have an expression, să moară cap vecinului. In Romania we have an expression, I wish the goat of the neighbor will die too.
Oh yeah, okay. In English they say, my neighbor's garden is greener than
the
mine.
grass is greener.
Yeah, the grass is greener. But the French are very special. I think they have been educated, to be opponents. And if you ask a French, in a political debate, do you believe that? No, will be the answer. No, the French are very special, honestly. It's also very difficult for me to understand, how people as clever as Sartre and others, many, many others, a generation of intellectuals, they were fascinated by criminal communism, as you say. It's an expression I fully agree with. I still do not understand.
Okay, so before we end, I would like to take 2 questions from our young students from the room. Mâinile sus cine are întrebări. 1, 2, începem cu nu văd bine? Domnișoară, da? Avem un microfon?
So, first of all, hello.
Please introduce yourself. Where are you from? What are you doing? And most importantly, what is your goal in life?
So, first of all, hello. My name is Sonia Dragan. I'm a student. I'm in high school. I'm from Timișoara. And I wanted to say that even though I don't know you personally, as it was said before, we are all people. So, I wanted to ask, how did you know that chemistry was that something for you that you were meant to dedicate your life for? Knowing that in these times, kids are told that it's too much stress to try and change something. And about the goal, I have no idea. But I would say that to learn as much as I can.
So the main question is why chemistry seemed to be so attractive to me.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, it's very simple. I was living in the countryside, when I was, let's say, between 14 and 18 years old. And I had a couple of friends, it was really in the countryside, in the woods, basically. And in the woods, you cannot do so much apart from, enjoying nature. And I was enjoying nature, but at the same time, I was curious. I wanted to know what makes the leaves green, what makes the rose pink. And using my, very tiny amount of knowledge, in chemistry, I started to extract molecules. I was grinding leaves. I had a small lab in the cellar when I was 15 or so, and I was extracting leaves to extract chlorophylls. And I succeeded, actually. I could separate various chlorophylls on paper, you know, as chromatography. I mean, I don't know if it speaks to you. And that was very enjoyable, you know, to take things with colors, which you find in your natural surrounding, and try to extract the molecules. Very enjoyable. And I thought, well, that I could try to pursue, you know, to do that more when I grow up.
So the reason was curiosity, you say?
Yeah.
And what do you think about the statement that kids are told that there's too much to do and too much work to change something or to make a big impact?
I'm not sure I made a big impact at all, you know. I made, with my group, you know, we worked on trying to first to have the impression that what we are doing is novel, but in terms of impact, again, you know, it could take decades, even more, before important applications come out from the field, you know, in which we have been working or we have initiated in a way. And this is not a problem to us. You know, mankind has still, hopefully, quite a large number of centuries to live, or millenniums, I don't know. And so it's not a big problem if it takes time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Our generation, Professor Sauvage's generation and my generation, we are used to delayed gratification. Probably when I was young, I also wanted more rapid gratification,
yeah, sure.
And because life is much faster for you, probably always the younger generation wanted to go faster. And that is also a very good source of progress. That is very welcomed. Okay, there was a second question here. Microphone, please.
Yeah, there was someone here. Maybe
Hello.
Yeah. Hello.
My name is Victor. I'm here a master student at West University Timișoara, master in bioinformatics.
Okay.
I want to say you a big thank you, and not only for what you said today, but it happens that I also saw you 4 years ago in 2019 in Paris, where you presented for International Chemical Olympiad for school pupils.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to say a big thank you for what you did then, and because you are a very inspiring scientist, and you also inspired me to go into science field. And now, going to my question, and I hope it's relevant for every young student or for all people who want to do science in their career. How do you think it's the best to find life balance between work and between family, and how to do great science and still be able to raise happy kids?
Now, that's a very important point, very important questions. I can speak about my personal experience, you know. I think I never had any conflict, you know, to solve. I have always had vacation with my family, you know, 3 weeks during the summertime. And I think perhaps the only problem was that I was keeping very concerned about my projects, or the projects of our group. And so even on vacation, you know, I could never stop thinking or even reading science. But that was very well accepted by my wife and my kids. So they were reading or watching TV, and I was trying to read a paper, you know, scientific paper. And that was it, but it was very well accepted.
Thank you. And maybe also the last one, you said that unfortunately you didn't took any Romanian student for your PhD as a postdoc. I just want, maybe you can give an advice to the students in this room and maybe to all Romanian students. What qualities would you search for in a PhD or postdoctoral student to take him into anything?
Which kind of field, you mean, research field? Or?
Yeah, maybe which personal skills or what qualities do you search for in people to work with you?
Yeah. I think, you know, for the people who are looking for, let's say, a good place, a good university to do studies, I think you have a very good place here. But if you want to go abroad, thanks to Europe, nowadays, I mean, you have many, many possibilities compared to the past. And so I think everybody should take advantage of that. To use Europe, there are networks now, lots of networks, good networks, not you know, toxic social networks, but good networks. And so I believe it's relatively easy for a student from Timișoara University to get, you know, an invitation to do something else abroad. And in terms of field, you know, if you are talking about field, if I had to start again, you know, my scientific life, I think I would get closer to biology. You know, biology is really fascinating, and combining chemistry, you know, the ability of chemists to make new molecules and biology can be really something great.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so is there one more question from a student?
No,
Yes. Last question.
Hello, I am Denisa, and I come from Anaslan. I'm a 10th grader, and I just wanted to ask real quick, but first I must say thank you for this, however you call it. I'm really a fan of talking to scientists and maybe other people in this field, mostly because I am very passionate about biology, but, okay, sorry, I'm a little bit awkward. So my main question is, can you, like, sorry, I'm a little bit awkward. So most people usually just discourage you from a thing, mostly because, like, oh, you're too young to do that, or oh, you're not good at something, and the problem comes with maybe you're good at that, but like you don't have to listen to people sometimes, do you? And my main question is, can you do something that you want to do without other people influencing you?
No way. You are the product of your environment.
Yes, I just want to ask a little bit. And also, do you think that anyone could be like a very aspiring person, even if they don't come from the best school, they don't come from the best family, or like they don't come from a very popular like place or family or whatever? Because from what I've seen, a lot of people do say that oh, you must have a very established lifestyle or established reputation to do something, which for me, I don't think it applies to everyone, but I just want to know your comment on that.
No doubt.
Thank
You
you.
don't need to come from a rich family, nor from a good place. I give you my personal case. So you've seen pictures. I was in North Africa between the age of 4 years old and 8 or 7, and then I moved to the US. I skipped school because I spent 1 year without school, you know. I came back and I was moving all the time. I was not a very good pupil, you know. I was not a very good student either. I became a good student at the age of, let's say, 16 or 17, when my situation got more stable. You know, it stabilized close to Strasbourg, and then I was better. But before, you know, I was, let's say, in the average.
Okay, thank you very much. So, unfortunately, it's time to finish, not before inviting domnule rector, vă mulțumim foarte mult pentru că ne-ați oferit această fantastică posibilitate. Un cuvânt de final, vă rugăm.
Thank you very much, Professor Sauvage. It's a great privilege for us to have you here today. You are a member of our academic community. Mulțumesc frumos domnului ministru Funeriu, mulțumesc frumos doamnelor și domnilor, dragi studenți, dragi colegi, dragi elevi. Universitatea de Vest din Timișoara, în an de capitală europeană a culturii, a asumat două proiecte mari. La UVT Cultura e capitală și Nobel la UVT. Lighting up your city este sloganul capitalei culturale, iar noi, Universitatea de Vest din Timișoara, încercăm prin mințile luminate pe care le aducem aici să luminăm orașul prin știință, educație și cultură. Mulțumesc frumos tuturor! Și nu uitați, dragi tineri elevi, că la UVT jobul nostru este viitorul vostru.